I'm Michelle Elligott, Chief of Archives, Library, and Research Collections at the Museum of Modern Art. I'd like to share with you some stories about the history of this great institution. As you may know, the Museum of Modern Art was founded in 1929, and what I find so fascinating is it was the idea of three enterprising and visionary women, who you see here on the wall behind us. Lily Bliss, Abby Aldrich Rockefeller, and Mary Quinn Sullivan had the concept to create an institution devoted to modern art. It is these three individuals who came together and realized that New York City was lacking an institution where the public could come together to enjoy, experience, and learn about the art of our time. The charter of the museum at its founding indicated the museum was chartered as an educational institution for the purpose of encouraging and developing the study of modern arts and the application of such arts to manufacture and practical life and furnishing popular instruction. The three founding women provided not only the inspiration and determination to create the new institution, but also in the case of Lily Bliss, the collection that became the nucleus of the permanent collection of the museum. What we see here is Lily Bliss's collection as it's installed in her apartment on Park Avenue in New York City. And what I love about these photographs is they prominently showcase one of her most coveted works, Cézanne's Bather, which you see here hanging on the wall, and which you see here was prominently featured in the museum's first exhibition that was organized by founding director Alfred Barr. Barr decided to focus on Cézanne, Gauguin, Seurat, and Van Gogh for the very first inaugural exhibition, which of course was a loan exhibition because the museum didn't have a permanent collection quite yet. We know that the exhibition was very well received by the public, as evidenced in this attendance ledger, where we can see that more than 47,000 people visited the show in a mere 4 weeks. So we can understand that from the very birth of the institution, there was a real desire to see modern art in the United States. In 1936, Alfred Barr organized his iconic Cubism and Abstract Art exhibition. This very famous diagram charts the evolution of modern art and its progression towards abstraction. And of course, any student of art history is very familiar with this graphic device. What I find so interesting is in the archives at MoMA, we have all of Alfred Barr's papers, and we see that he had 12 different drafts. This is one example of that. And through these drafts, we can actually trace the evolution of his thinking and his understanding of how modern art has changed over time. Here we see an installation view of that show in 1936, and I just love the fact that he felt it as a way to be able to open up the secrets, if you will, of abstraction to the American public that sometimes found it a little difficult to understand. He paired Boccioni trying to explain futurism by pairing it with something a little more comfortable to the general public, such as this reproduction of the victory of Samothrace. Within the first few years of the museum's existence, it was clear that the program was a great success. Indeed, many luminaries signed the guest book. Here we see such figures as Fernand Léger, George Gershwin, Henri Matisse, Paul Claudel, Sarah Delano Roosevelt, Salvador Dali, and even Albert Einstein all signed the museum's first guest book. In 1931, the museum organized its first solo exhibition devoted to the work of Henri Matisse. It was actually Matisse's first major museum show in the United States as well. The artist did not come to see the exhibition, rather he saw installation photographs of it, but we know he was pleased with how the exhibition came about. Indeed, he writes in this wonderful letter to Alfred Barr that he thought the installation was perfect. And after the fact, he took a copy of the catalog that Alfred Barr had produced for the show and sent it back to Barr with this gorgeous drawing of bathers and an inscription. With this show, Alfred Barr began a lifelong interest in the work of Matisse. Another lifelong interest of Alfred Barr's was the work of artist Pablo Picasso. Here we see documentation pertaining to the museum's 1957 retrospective of Picasso. And what I love so much is in this photograph, you can see Alfred Barr in the studio with the artist Picasso. He's actually pulling out his paintings and they're investigating them together in preparation for the show. Now, Picasso never came to the United States, so therefore, of course, he didn't attend the opening at the museum. But in my opinion, I think he wanted to participate in some way. So what we find in Barr's papers in the archives is this beautiful silk tie made by Picasso and actually sent through the mail in the envelope you see here. In addition to this, Picasso also made 4 other paper ties that he hand decorated, and he inscribed on the back that they were ties to wear at the opening. In 1955, Edward Steichen organizes the famous Family of Man exhibition. After being presented at the museum in New York, the exhibition traveled to 37 countries on 6 continents and was seen by over 8.5 million people. And this itinerary vouches to the fact that the exhibition traveled around the world. In addition to organizing shows devoted to modern masters, the museum also had an interest in presenting art from different eras and different places. For example, the museum organized exhibitions devoted to Italian Renaissance masters or Indian art of the United States. In 1947, for example, the museum mounted a show titled Arts of the South Seas, in which René Darnencourt presented works from the Pacific area. In 1973, the museum organized the most comprehensive retrospective to date of the work of Marcel Duchamp. One component of the exhibition was an exhibition catalog in which other artists were invited to give tributes in honor of Duchamp. What we see here are postcards, one of which was annotated by John Cage with a poem in tribute to the artist. Secondly, here we see a letter from Hans Richter, where he's written a tribute to Duchamp, but what I really love is he's traced his hand, so in a way I see it as the hand of the artist. The museum has had an illustrious history to date, and the story continues. With the show here, we end with a film of the new building expansion that will be open in 2019.